I believe you if it say it's on. Maybe it's being recorded. All
There it
right.
is.
It is 5 o'clock on Wednesday. Turns out it's the 2nd of October and not the 3rd, which I thought it was earlier in the week. But anyway, I'm glad you all made it despite my inaccuracies. I don't think we've got any new folks on board, so we don't have new people to welcome. Let's dive right into, hey, honey Otis, nice to see you. Um, for September meeting minutes, Mark continues to do a spectacular job. If only we could work on the formatting, but we will do that. Do we have any questions or issues with the minutes, team? All right. Um, what's the thing you say when it's passed unless somebody says otherwise?
No, I forget.
Hey, Shannon, what's the thing, or anyone, what do you,
By acclamation.
By acclamation.
okay,
Passed by acclamation.
so I'd like to pass these minutes by acclamation. So that's what I'm doing.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Hi.
I,
Aye.
I'm not a voting member though.
Oh, okay.
Bye.
The vote.
All right.
Archie's here.
I, okay, Spike's leaving, but anyway, in that brief moment, he voted, so they are passed. Um, so I'm going to kick it off with just a couple of quick things I have here. Um, I really enjoyed Scylla Absil, who talked about open primaries. She was our guest speaker in October, September. I think she did a terrific job. Uh, I salute Diane. She contacted all 39 of those legislators, and only two of them showed up. So what I'm taking from that is screw them. They either come when they see it on email, or they don't come, and we're not going to put the time and energy into it. Anybody disagree? You are welcome to reach out and call or text them. But that is too much high maintenance for too little return on the buck. And Diane's got other things she's doing. So I think we had 28 or 29 people, but it was very good. And then we had a follow-up event in person a couple of days later, and I talked about it with my hat on of Veterans for All Voters, which is a nonpartisan thing, talking about ranked choice voting and open primaries and blah, blah, blah. And our next guest speaker event is going to be the 16th. Why won't this?
Turn it into
Oh,
silent.
I have it on silent.
No.
Anyway, we'll put it in the other room.
No, it's on silent.
So alcohol harms alleviation or reduction. And Dorothy, I don't know if you cleared up all your email. Joanne Ferrari is on leave, vacation, and instead we have Kathleen
Kathleen
Kate.
Cates.
Yeah, okay, good. So I think they're going to be terrific.
Yeah, and we have Shannon Pinto, and she's a powerhouse behind this.
Yeah.
Look,
So I'm just going to send out a flyer like a week in advance. I put it in the October newsletter. I'll send it out a week in advance. It's on the website. I'll send it out a day in advance. They show, they don't show, whatever. But I'm looking forward to it. I think we're going to have some legislators that are interested in this. Does anyone have any questions on alcohol harms alleviation legislation? And if they do, they can talk to Dorothy. Diane, yes, ma'am.
You're on mute, Diane.
Thank you, Bob. My only question is if there's another bill that one is just taxing distributors and the one that we have that we're presenting or Antoinette, I'm not sure the difference of the two. And
I
should
think it's who's being taxed, Diane. And you're right. I'm so glad you brought that up. That was
It's how
Cynthia.
the tax is being collected and from whom.
Yeah.
So Christina Perron wanted to, I can remind her, she said, can I come and she's the one on the other bill. And she wanted to know if she could put a slide up. So if she can, then I'll have And I don't mind trying one more time texting these people, just one more time. If you
Okay.
want me to. I mean, I'll
All
try.
right.
And if it doesn't work this time, then we know definitely because it is election season, so some of them are.
Oh, I
And
know they're busy. Yeah. All
yeah,
Hmm.
right.
but I'll try one more time.
Yeah. Dorothy, I don't see any reason why we can't have Representative Parhon put up a slide and talk about the legislation that they're going to be bringing up again. Because I think it'd be nice to get them
Yeah,
together.
I kind of trust her not to get into a debating match with the others. So I'd be okay with that. Some of them, but we're not hosting a debate here.
Well, we're hosting a discussion, a
Yes,
forum and a discussion, and I'm happy to mediate, and I can also use the master and mute button.
you know,
But I'm happy
and
to
I'm okay
mediate.
with her presenting a slide without knowing the content of it. I can't say any much more about it.
What she's going to have in the slide is the distinction between their bill, which taxes the distributors, and the other bill, which is taxing the consumers.
Hmm.
Okay. And is that the only difference in the bills?
I don't know,
We
but
don't
it'd be
know.
nice to have everyone pulling in the same direction.
It'd be nice if they would, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and maybe if they have this kind of conversation,
Yeah.
it'll spur them to work together, after the election and before the session so that we can get it together. But I think it'd be good for us to be aware of it too.
Yeah. I can tell you the distributors were a powerful lobbying group up there against the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Diane, so would you reach back out to the young representative
Yeah,
uh,
I'll confirm with her tomorrow. I'll call her.
and would you ask her to send whatever it is she wants to present to the caucus email at least 48 hours in advance?
Okay.
That'd be great. And then, yeah, if you're willing to text him one more time, I appreciate that. Um, so one of the wonderful ideas, and I'm gonna attribute it to both Walt and Panayotis, but I'm not sure who did it. It might be Panayotis came up with, is I said, we need more volunteers. We need a new secretary. Was it you about okay. And that's the beauty of having new volunteers like we have. He said, let's put out a survey. We did, and we had 10 or 11 people volunteer. Bob and Leslie filled it out, but in addition to them, we had 10 new people, which, and several, although nobody said they would act as secretary, so we're still looking for that. But we have several people who want to write. And I would like to weave this right in right now, Walt, if you don't mind, um, about Jeff, about
Yeah,
Paul.
yeah, that's fine. One of the people that volunteered is a specialist in letters to the editor. He's written a book about them a number of years ago. He's had letters published all over the country. And he does a workshop presentation on how to shape content and structure a letter to the editor that has a high probability of getting past the editor and into print. And he would be willing to he and I talked this afternoon uh, to do a Zoom presentation for anybody that wanted to participate. We talked about size of Zoom. He likes to do it in person, but I think given our geographic disparity, it's probably best that we maintain a focus on Zoom. And he probably would do it a couple times. Um, he could do it for this group as a specific uh, audience. And then we could do a call, an open announcement for other members of the caucus to attend a separate one. But it sounds to me, having been involved in the newspaper business for a number of years in my life, a lot of years actually, It sounds like a really fruitful uh, exercise for us to increase the probability of getting a letter noticed by an editor and in fact published. The question I have is timing. When would we like to do this? Do we want to try to shove it in prior to the election, or shall we? It's the dust's pretty thick at the moment, I think. Do we want to wait until after the election and set ourselves up to support legislative initiatives or both?
What do you folks think? Yes,
I
ma'am.
will I will participate whenever you want to.
Okay. Dorothy, you had your hand up, ma'am?
Yeah, I do. I think we should wait until after the election. The fresher the training is in the minds of people who may possibly volunteer, the better. Uh, here's something that races through my mind when we have somebody of quality that wants to give a training. I'd like to see some attendees there. And what my experience is of giving training is that you can train about 50 people and about five of them will actually do it. Uh, but the attendance, I don't know how to boost attendance for it so that we honor his gift of training with actual attendees.
Well, I think Dorothy, your points are good, and I think that one of the things that we're going to want to do is promote the workshop, which is what he calls it, um, as aggressively as we do our guest speakers. I think that that'll help some. Uh, and his credentials are strong,
Yeah, they are.
quite strong, actually, as a published author, and having, I mean, when he sort of, in our conversation, touched the bases of the various editorial desks in the country that have published letters from him, and they're impressive. I mean, not everybody makes the New York Times and the Chicago Tribune. So, uh,
Yeah, I don't have any reservations about the quality of the training. I trust your judgment on that, and you wouldn't send us anybody that was a dud. So
well, and
I'm good on
Claudia
that.
gets the credit for this. She actually
Well,
talked with him about
actually,
it.
this is back to the survey. And we had a dozen people reply, and about seven of them volunteered to write letters to the editors. So I'd like to grab those seven
I,
and Bob and
Just
anyone
thank
started
you.
else
a
here.
Zoom with my caucus. Can I call you
Anyone
back
else?
after?
I'm going to mute Dorothy and anybody else here who's interested. So I don't think we're going to have the same issue with 50, the five get it out of the 50 trained.
No.
Dorothy, I muted you just to cut down the background noise. I think we're going to do pretty well. If we can get five people out of the 10 or 15 that attend to write some letters, I think we're going to be good.
Yeah.
Bob, you've written excellent letters to the editor. I'm happy to do some writing. Walt, whoever else. I think what I'm taking from this is let's wait till after the election because people are saturated. But let's not wait too long. Maybe we can do it, that week right after the election or whatever. And we can advertise it early and get the word out and people sound
I
okay?
don't know, Dorothy, whether you heard Claudia while you were taking your phone call, but of the 10, 11 people that signed up, volunteered, seven of them said that they were willing to write letters to the editor. So that gives us the beginning of a group to communicate with. I had forgotten that, and that's a really good point. Yeah,
Just
I think
impressed.
go
I'm going
ahead.
to take a second here and I'd like to share a screen. Oh boy. Okay, so I want to share a screen. All right. Okay. So folks, this is what I have. We
Okay.
have, hang on a second. I know how fun it is to look at these really big databases on a tiny screen. We have 11 people that signed up. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Seven that want to write letters to the editors. So if we have those seven and three or four of us, and if I think that would be a small group, but I think that people would definitely follow through on that. I'd like to give that a try. And depending on how that goes, we can always do this again. I think Jeff will be up for it. What do you think?
That'd be great. I think we ought to direct our efforts towards prospective legislation. I mean, if we're going to write letters to, we don't want to do it before the election.
Exactly.
So let's start thinking in terms of legislation that we want to write letters to the editor about. And
Okay.
that's what we're shooting for, I think, to get
Yes,
some.
definitely. How do I stop sharing my screen, Ivan? Oh, stop share. Never mind. I asked you just in time to answer the question. Dan, you've got your hand up, ma'am.
When we do letters of the editor, would they be on behalf of the Veterans Caucus? And do we have
Yes.
to always have that cleared by the Democratic Party?
You know,
No.
Dan,
No,
my background is
no.
not one that lends me to ever want to ask anyone for permission. So
Good.
let's
I
not even
agree.
ask the question.
Yeah, and from an editor's standpoint, an editor's much less interested in an advocacy group's positions. They'll provide an advocacy group the opportunity to write an op-ed, but like a lot of content in daily newspapers or weekly newspapers, the mission is eyeballs on the screen, eyeballs on the page. And so the part of it, and Jeff and I talked about this earlier today, but my experience was always the more interesting the matter is, sometimes the more controversial and well thought through and well executed a letter is, the more it will be read. Somebody
Yep.
knows how to write a good lead will get somebody to actually read beyond the first sentence. And that's the part of the editor's mission. So these are letters from individuals with adequate credentials, either as veterans or as individuals involved with substance abuse in the course of their own lives, or whatever the issue is, that have some credibility that gives them a pusto, a place from which to speak about a particular issue. Sorry, I'm post-COVID, I'm a little grumpy.
You're doing fine, Walt. I mean, 2 weeks of COVID. God bless you. Yes,
I,
ma'am, Dorothy.
Um, it's my only guidance here at this point would be when we have that core of seven letter writers, which I think is a large group actually of letter
Mhm.
writers, considering the structure of our caucus. That's a large group of letter writers. I think we should have a lead letter writer or the caucus chair or vice chair or somebody that reads the letter before it's submitted if it's going out in behalf of the caucus, just to make sure we don't have a loose cannon on deck.
I
I
think
think
you're
that's excellent, and I think Walt would be the guy to do that,
yeah, I
frankly.
also think Jeff, as a tutor, in his role as a workshop leader, could be extremely helpful. And Dorothy, I think one of the things that we're going to want to think about with this, um, we all have a tendency to focus exclusively on the large daily newspapers that serve the state. Uh, where it is not a prudent thing to ignore the power of the weekly newspapers, even the electronic weekly newspapers that that communicate to the constituencies of individual members. And you're going to have a better feel for what members were concerned about and where a letter could be well placed. And I'm going to close the door now because they're using the weed whip.
Great. We've got a 10-minute window until Bob has to depart the picture. So Bob, your hand's up. What's up, sir?
Okay. Well, I guess I might as well start with letters to the editor. I wrote a letter to the editor um, on the fact that it's about the PACT Act. It gives a touching story about the guy who died, and his family kind of was behind putting the PACT Act together. Died from um, toxic substances in Iraq. Anyway, so then I described the PACT Act that was passed in 22, and then I get to the vote where the House of Representatives passed the bill 60% to 40%. And of the 40%, guess who voted against the PACT Act? And that's Yvette Herrell. So, I basically called her out on that. Now, whether I'll get this published or not, I don't know. I sent it to Silver City paper, Las Cruces paper, Albuquerque, Roswell, and Alamogordo. Now, with all of these things, they limit your if you're just doing a letter to the editor, they limit you to either 250 or 300 words. And so that's one trick. I did with the Albuquerque Journal try to suggest to them that I could do an opinion letter. I sent them two versions, a longer one for the opinion letter and the short one for the letter to the editor. And I don't know what sort of response I'll get. The editor did call me and chatted briefly, but we were both having trouble with Verizon. And I told him I had sent him an email. So anyway, just thought I'd point out those limitations about letter to the editor. And I don't know if we talk, and then I'm going to just go down my list here. The
Bob,
Department of,
before you leave that, would you
Mhm.
like to bounce your letter off of Jeff Jeff Paul?
To Jeff, what?
Would you like to bounce your letter off of Jeff Paul? He's this expert who's been writing letters to the editor and has had hundreds published and
Oh,
blah
well,
blah
I tell
blah.
you what, I already sent him.
Oh, good. Never mind. All right.
Uh, but next time I will.
Feedback.
I like
Well,
the
I,
idea.
Feedback.
Bob, I can say from experience that was one of the tightest letters to the editor I've ever read.
Yeah,
I
it'd be
like
great if
it.
No,
if
it was
somebody.
very, very, very strong. And it hit all the buttons. And the fact that you got a call from was it the Albuquerque Journal does not surprise me in the least. They're going to want to run that. It's controversial, and that is helpful. Editors love that. So
Hmm.
it has
Albuquerque is very conservative. The Journal is conservative.
Yeah.
The
It is.
town is not, but
the
they
family is
always
very
publish
conservative.
things that aren't pro-Republican.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of friction within the editorial side of that newspaper, though, between the publisher, historically as an extremely right-wing character, and it's kind of hard to hire right-wing journalists. They're a little hard to find. So
They're
he's
not
always
very
got
lettered, are they?
some room there.
So Shannon, is your question to Bob, sir?
Yes. Could you send me a copy of what you sent down to the Las Cruces newspaper and tell me which one you sent it to, the Sun, the Bulletin, or KRWG? Because I have contacts at those organizations, and I can try to get it published at another paper that you may not have sent it to.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, I'm more than happy to do that because if you get it done, I mean, we got to get it. Got to be great to get something in Las Cruces because that's where the votes are. So
Exactly.
let
Well,
me.
yeah, I can also get it probably on the radio as well. A couple of radio talk shows.
Okay, that sounds great. I'll contact you probably in the morning, and if you need to be driven anywhere tomorrow, I'm available. If you're in Albuquerque. Um,
Yeah, thank you. I have to be at a class at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I think it's only about a mile from where I'm staying. I'm staying up near the um, Balloons Park, and
and
I think I'm about a mile from where I have to be. So I should be fine. But thank you very much. And my class goes from 8 to 5, and then I have to go from the class to the meeting where Gabe is at. So if somebody wants to pick me up there, that might be a good idea. So
okay, I
thank you
would
for
do
that.
that. I would do that because I'm going to the Gabe thing also.
That'd be great.
Um,
Then I'll contact you, or you contact me midday tomorrow. Okay.
okay, and then
All
me
right.
and you and Diane maybe need to talk about and Dorothy or Claudia or whatever issues we might want to raise with them. Uh, the next thing I want to go into is we met with the Attorney General. Did we go over that last time?
No, we did not.
Okay. The Attorney General, not with the Attorney General himself, with his assistant. It was set up by Diane
And
and me and Claudia were there. And the issue is claim sharks. And by claim sharks, I mean people who there is a law um, that you can become certified to help veterans file their health claims. Uh, and I'm kind of focusing on the PACT Act. And uh, when this law was passed, the VA will help you free um, in all respects. And then they certified a number of nonprofits like the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and they do it for free for veterans. And there was a penalty for doing it, for charging any veteran to file to have help with these claims. In 2006, somebody slipped in legislation that did away with the penalties for non certified helpers. People have made tens of millions of dollars helping veterans and taking a chunk. At any rate, so we met with the Attorney General. I gave him we talked to him. All of us had something to say. And we left him with really useful information, including a draft law that we would like to see in the next legislature. So that's really all I want to say about that right now. But if you're going to be meeting with the Attorney General, Shannon,
Hmm.
might want to
uh,
cover that too.
yeah,
Uh,
I'm trying to think of who that was. It was a young fella.
his name is
Diane is
Diane
not
Taylor Bowie.
Taylor Bowie.
Yes, Taylor.
Oh,
Taylor is the guy. He's the assistant.
Taylor Swift was not available, so
Yeah.
we went right to Taylor
Taylor, but
Bowie.
wait.
Taylor Bowie. So
Have we ever heard back from Taylor Bowie?
Right.
we haven't heard back, but what I did was because Diane said, do you think you ought to nudge him a little? And I had a conversation with the guy at the VFW who's really the expert. And I sent him a couple of articles for him to read. I think we're probably not going to get his attention until after the election, is my guess. But
But Raul is not up for election, Bob.
yeah, I
So
know.
I would, I'm with Diane. Keep
Okay.
nudging.
I'll nudge him again. I would have thought that he would have read those and responded to us, but they were excellent articles on the whole subject. Uh, the other thing I wanted to mention is,
And Taylor Bowie's the chief of staff, and
yeah, smart guy, is good young
Smart young
lawyer.
man.
Um, campaigns. I mean, uh, everybody's, I guess, needs to get out and canvass or phone call or something. And I've been helping. Um, did a few for Meredith Dixon. I went out with Pamela Herndon, who's state rep, and Sam Bregman was there. And then I did a canvas for Gabe, um, and he had a young guy working there named Luca, and nice young guy. And I called him Luca Brasi, and he didn't know what I was talking about.
Sleeps with the fishes.
Yeah, but anyway, he may not have been seen the Godfather.
No.
So I've got Meredith scheduled again for Saturday, since she's my state rep and she's really great with veterans.
We had a good
Um,
team on Gabe's doors. Diane drove, Bob and I, and we
yeah,
just hustled around and
we did.
actually engaged about a third of the people we were supposed to,
Yeah,
or a
we got it.
third of the number of people. It was very good.
Yeah, we got it. Actually, made some progress. Um,
And
I
Diane
think that
provides the best snacks.
she did. She had his sandwiches and everything else. The burden was on her to provide snacks and drinks, and she did a good job.
Cheers. G&Ts.
Stop,
Oh,
stop.
all right, all right.
So that's all I have to report today. I will call you, Shannon. Um, what's your phone number?
It's all in membership as well, Bob, in case
Okay,
that's helpful. Maybe not.
I can find it then in there.
Do you want Jeff, are you interested in this letter to the editor? Jeff Swanson?
He says thumbs up.
I'd send it to both the CD2 vice chairs.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, here, I'm
And
going to
that's
share Shannon's contact with you, Bob.
okay. And that's kind
I
of where I'm
I
at.
can do that as well. Okay.
All right. And
And
I have a 250 pager. I think Las Cruces required that I do 250 words, not pages. I think it was 250. It was either 250 or three. And I'll send you that. But I have a longer one that I really wish that I suggested they publish. And that these other letters I sent out just as an individual, but the one that I wanted to see published in the Albuquerque Journal was in my capacity with the veterans group. So maybe I'll send that one to you. I'd rather see that published. It's longer and better. It's only 400, a little over 400 words. And maybe you can get them to put that one in. So
it's a
that's
good one.
all I have, folks. And I do have to get going. I'm sorry I can't stay for the whole show.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Bob, and thanks for the hard work you're doing. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
All right. See you later.
hi, Leslie.
Bye.
Oh, yeah. Leslie did several thousand buttons for the Democratic Party
Yes, she did.
on her button machine.
Yeah.
So they went like
And
hotcakes at
actually,
the.
Bob, that's her second button machine. She completely wore one out
Yeah.
Yeah.
and had to
Yeah.
buy
And
a higher quality button machine.
she's on the third one, but I made a few for Pamela just and for Melanie Stansberry, and they liked them. So anyway, that was for the state fair. But Leslie's worked very hard to get that stuff done. So shout
Good
out
job.
to Leslie. All right, see you later.
There are
Thanks.
some
Hi, Bob.
Bye, Bob.
works of art.
Yeah, they really are. Because Jeff, we got several people took the pretty buttons as well as those CA1 and 2 buttons.
Yep. Down at the fair.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Spike and Bruce are not here. I don't know what they're briefing. They're not here, so nothing's going to get said. We have all of CD2 front and center. Shannon, are you on a shorter timeline than the rest of us? Do you want to go first? Jeff, do you
Not
mind?
really. Not really. I'm waiting on a bus. But no, I'm fine. um, I do want some of those buttons, though. If you could bring me some when you pick me up tomorrow, that'd be great. If I had some of the Kamala Harris buttons for veteran support, I'm happy to pay for it.
Oh, that's Bob.
Yeah.
You guys need to talk. Shannon, talk to
Yeah, I'll
Bob.
talk to Bob. I'll
He's
talk
got
to
the
him
button
tomorrow.
maker. He can bring you buttons.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll go whenever you want me to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, the other thing I really got going right now, of course, I met with Begay. Gabby Begay was actually in Las Cruces a couple of days, Monday, and I was at her meeting, and to help with her, donated some stuff to her. I had a conversation with her, and so that really went really well. And it was nice to meet her face to face. The other thing is I've got a golf tournament this weekend. I'm actually playing with a veteran team for the care flight from Las Cruces. The people that raise the funds for that, they usually raise about $40,000 at this event. Last year, we had a veterans team who actually won the tournament. I was on it, me and 3 other veterans. This year, we could only get 2 veterans because something else is coming up. We're going to have 2 veterans, and Joanne Ferrari and Rich Ferrari are going to play. But we're still hoping to win again this year. We won with like an 8 under last year, which is first tournament I've ever won. So this is hopefully we can repeat it. Other than that, nothing major except I'm working with them. Something interesting happened at White Sands. The civilian commander told me he's got some land on White Sands that he'd like to develop commercially and lease it to some entity. Well, I have several people who are interested in doing that. So he's interested. I'm interested. We're going to meet probably next week sometime to sit down and talk about some specific possibilities there. And another thing that's happening is we've got a big development of about 10,000 homes going in Chaparral, which is just north of Fort Bliss. And Fort Bliss has asked me to find some housing for them. So since it's in my district and we're going to do a PID, I'm going to ask them to actually designate something like 500 to 1,000 homes just for military families and set aside like a whole area just for military to cover White Sands and Fort Bliss on the border of Texas and New Mexico. So those are the things I'm working on. Plus a bunch of other stuff with Chaparral, including community solar, getting some more investments in there, rezoning for commercial and light manufacturing. So there's a lot going on between White Sands and Fort Bliss that I'm working on. And Fort Bliss is also trying to expand some of their testing area as well for new ordinances they're wanting to test. They put out a letter on that. They're looking for feedback between now and the end of October, I think. I reviewed it. I don't see where there's a problem, but I can share it with you guys if you want to. That's all I've got.
That's excellent. That's great. And thanks so much for coming up for the Rising Star event. Diane, what's up, ma'am?
You're welcome. It was great to see Josh get an award. That was great. I enjoyed that.
And free was the right price, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the only price.
Yeah. The only one worth attending.
Yes,
Well,
exactly. And there was
someone,
yes, and when Rick, oh, this is sort of, I'll tell you after. I shouldn't have it recorded. It's a nice 10 reference. Whatever happened with the land commissioner? Is she part of this land participation that you're working on, Shannon? Because I know last year you were looking forward to something with her. And also, what are they testing? I just want to know what Fort Bliss is testing.
I can get you a copy of the paper for that, what they're talking about testing the ordinance and stuff. So let me make a copy of that. I'll send that to you. This may or may not involve the land commissioner. We have a company, excuse me, an owner who owns about 1,000 acres, 900 acres, 1,000 acres, and they've actually sold that land to a developer down here that's going to develop it. But because they want to do a PID, which is a private infrastructure tax, development tax, it has to come before our board. So I have a little bit of leverage with them in order to help them with the design and to control the design of it. So I'm going to make a request as the county commissioner that they provide this area based on me supporting them. Because I didn't support them on the last PID that they got for another area. But for me to support them on this one, I'm going to ask them for some help with the military. And I'll get that to you.
Thank you.
All right. Jeff Swanson, over to you, sir.
Sure.
By the way, I haven't ruled out this. I'm sorry, I haven't ruled out the land commissioner, but that's another project. Sorry.
Jeff,
Okay.
what's going on down there in Otero County?
Yes, our big thing was we had a big county fair, and the Democratic Party has shut down Otero County DPOC because people were just so cranky and hostile. And there's a booth right there at the entryway, and about 12,000 people go by it. I don't want to lose that booth for the Democrats. Yvette Harrell was over there snooping at it because she'd love to have it. So the only way I could keep that booth was to convince DPNM officials that the Veterans Caucus would run the booth, not Democratic Party of Otero County, and that we would personally keep problematic people away. And we did. So that was sort of the second year, that was a success. We established a first year success last year doing that. And I want to thank Claudia and her husband, Rick, for coming down and sitting in that booth for, I don't know how long, but handed out literature all day. And then Mark Finley, he drove all the way from Albuquerque and sat in the booth for hours and hours and hours, handing out literature and being positive. And then he drove all the way back to Albuquerque. And we signed up Alexis Romo and some other people into the Veterans Caucus who are not problematic people. So it was a success, and I really credit the Veterans Caucus for helping us keep that booth and having a very successful experience where we could hand out literature and those pins, that some people call works of art, and hand them out to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. So, and I'm very, very grateful to the Veterans Caucus for that. The second thing, I'm going to present a talk to our police and first responders next week about the Veterans Court. We only have 4 members in our Veterans Court right now, and we have room for 12. And that concerns me, but we have a bunch of mentors. It's nonpartisan, of course. And but Mark Pratt and Jan Bond and others are just key and essential, and most of the key and essential people are Democrats. The other thing, I'm going to try to be positive here, but I need to be direct. I went to the Rising Star dinner luncheon, and Rick there, he was debonair. Had a hat on, the shirt, pants matched the hat, all, riding in there. He was just debonair. And then I also want to say something about Shannon. So at our fair there, we had enough volunteers and people that signed up for the Veterans Caucus to help, but Shannon was on standby to come over if we needed him. And I want to thank Shannon personally for that, for the fair. But Shannon showed up again at the Rising Star event, and just let me just be blunt. Okay. So if you had a E3 or Lance Corporal or something, and you assigned him a project officer duty to set up a little dinner or something, it would have failed. It would have failed. They didn't have enough chairs. They didn't have enough seats. And when they found that out, what did they do? Nothing. The hotel or whatever, that convention staff had to jump in. They never did set up enough tables, but they did set up some more chairs. And then Shannon's standing there, and Shannon got there early, like a good airman. And he got there early, and so he had a place at a table, and he had his own chair. Well, what did Shannon do? He gave that up to make sure that senior citizens had a place to sit. And one of them was a dear warrior lady. She is a mescalero. Her name is Donna Lynn Torres. And she's the only woman that dances in the mescalero war dance with an exposed knife. She's a warrior class, but she is going to join the Veterans Caucus too, solid Democrat. But I mean, for orchestration, they didn't do so well. And that's where I want to say something about the Veterans Caucus, is what we're doing for the Democratic Party is we're adding some hope and organization and enthusiasm. Look at all the places that Shannon goes to. I mean, he gets into places that most people can't get near, and does vital business out there in the Gulf course. And the commander of White Sands Missile Range is talking to him about, property. I mean, that is astounding. Another thing we do is we set the standards for like behavior. If I was allowed to set the standards that the Veterans Caucus has in the Democratic Party of Otero County, we wouldn't be having a party that was suspended. And then here's the big alarm button. To me, we have 33 counties. Over 10 of them are dysfunctional or out of business.
Out of business.
1/3, and who visited all those counties? The veterans. Yeah. And mostly Rick and Claudia, and some of the others of us went out there too. Tanya, Tammy and others.
And Bob, Tammy, we were out there, and they've been dropping like flies.
Yeah.
We used to have only 5 that were not organized. Now we have 10. I mean, people are just walking away or being shut down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm thinking that maybe the Veterans Caucus could put together, and it could be led by people in the Veterans Caucus, but it probably shouldn't be only people in the Veterans Caucus, but teams of 3. Maybe one person is the lead, and then 2 others. And we should go to each one of these counties and have a little hamburger or breakfast at a little restaurant and try to see if we can get them reorganized. Now, the problematic ones like Otero and San Juan, they're probably going to need some extra attention. But others that are just defunct because there's lack of interest, I bet you we could get them together at a little breakfast restaurant and, come out of there with some parties. Because if we don't do this, Amy Barella's got a plan, and I sent it out as a radio interview if anybody wants to see it. But it's her plan. She wants to be the new Steve Pierce. She wants to turn New Mexico bright red.
Oof.
Going to do it in the rural counties first. So, standing in the breach is our Veterans Caucus. Just doing the basic things that soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines do, and that is, basic skill sets that having um, an event that, is welcoming and works for all people. And then the other thing is, our degree of discipline and standards. So, I mean, those issues came through for me. And I'm going to talk with, I'm going to just get it out here. I'm going to talk with Manny, and I'm just going to tell him, man, that rising star thing, it didn't work. They didn't have enough tables, didn't have enough chairs. I mean, it was not organized. And I think at the last minute that they were desperate to get people to come there. And
That's why they gave so many tickets away, Shannon, Jeff. They reached out to every caucus lead and said you can have 5 free tickets. They reached out to the delegates and said you can each have a free ticket. And they still couldn't give all those free tickets away. But Diane's got something to say. Over to you, ma'am.
How many of our veterans are SCC members who can vote? Because there's some new rules coming out this weekend that we should vote against. And I feel that because I've been meeting with other SCC members, we're starting to call them and see if they'll vote against it. They're not transparent, and it's just a small group. No,
I
Claudia?
agree. No, I agree. They are not transparent, Diane.
Not
I'm supporting what you're saying.
They're not transparent. The treasurer's report, even though I'm sure her hands were tied, it still doesn't have any transparency. It says the cost of the national convention was accommodations for delegates. Well, we paid for their accommodations and they weren't transparent. We and they're so insular with their own little heads together. I mean, they're just throwing things. It's impossible. I mean, they need a mediation. We need to bring a mediation, but right now they are putting forth some rules that will never happen and will insulate them even further. And Kathy McCord is now not only on staff, but she is the rules person, and then she does the mediation and everyone else. And I was in one of those groups and I've seen how it works. So I'm really disappointed, and I don't think I'll be involved next year. And if I am, it's only if we can find a good slate, a good leadership. And when you say Manny, um, he is, he's there for photo opportunities. And they all are it's so disappointing. I'm very involved, and I mean, I've always been the one who will help organize, who will help set up events, who will canvass, who will phone call, who will get 40 volunteers at a moment's notice. I've always been able to do that. And then to be so involved on this other side, and I've seen how it really is, and the time I've spent at the office directly, and how they've treated other counties and how they treat us. When I saw how it happened at a national convention, I was like, oh my God, now I know. And if we don't have some good leadership, and I know Manny wants to run again, it will be the same old thing.
No, Diane, he's not running. Two
he's not
people asked him directly. He is not running for chair, if that's what you mean.
Oh, vice chair. I want Tate for county to help the rural get that. That my personal opinion. We really need a good chair, and I know money will be coming in. It will be a lot easier for that chair because it's a big governor's race. You have, so it will be a little bit easier on that. And we need in-person meetings. Only 55 people were at the SCC meeting that we had 2 weeks ago, and only 30 people were on Zoom, and they probably weren't even SCC members. And it was just a joke. And because I was open at our download about how the convention went, they finally had that. And Claudia was, and Labor was. I had three young delegates who were on the slate that got elected who are new to they're new younger people and they're not going to speak up and I didn't know, but they came up and said, "Thank you for speaking up for us. Thank you for speaking up." And I was like, "Okay, good. We're on to something." So I'm so disappointed, but calling Manny to say, "Why didn't we have more chairs and tables?" He'll say, "Oh, they keep me out of the loop, and it's really the staff." And he's there. I mean, he put together a separate viewing party last night from the DNs and from the party. And he's probably putting together his list of, "Hey, will you endorse me for vice chair?" And we can't have the same group. And I'll probably try to become an SCC person so I can vote. But if we don't get the strong people in that care, then I'll just resign right after that because it's that bad.
Yeah,
Sorry.
he
I hope
battled.
this makes sense. I hope this makes sense. But
Yes,
the
Diane.
veteran, huh?
Yeah, you're making sense.
But the Veterans Caucus is, and people are jealous. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I called our county chair, who's new, who's only a ward chair, barely the before Flora. She didn't have any competence. She's a nice person. And I can't tell you how many times, "Where do you want the Veterans Caucus to do a presentation? We can do it. We have veterans for Gabe down here. We can go up to the Northeast Heights. We can do this." I called her all the time. Bernalillo County we couldn't even do our road trip. And she's very jealous. People are jealous of the Veterans Caucus, believe it or not. People are so competitive. I go, "We're all one team. We weren't united at the convention. So if you think we're going to be united at the party, at this point, we got to get someone to unify us as a state chair." And that's all I'm going to say. So I wouldn't call Manny. Nothing will happen.
I got a VA appointment on the 16th, so I'm going to go take him out to supper. But I look at him as like maybe a conduit to get information in.
No, it's
No,
No, Jeff.
no,
I
Jeff.
know it too intimately, and I've been involved in too many committees, but you can
No,
take me
Jeff.
out to dinner and I'll tell you more. I'm just kidding.
You'll get more information from Diane.
Yeah, Jeff, he's not the guy.
He's
I want to comment before I get back to Shannon. I don't really think that we've got the bandwidth with this legislative session coming up to try to take over and be the outreach arm of the DPNM at this point. Maybe after the legislative session, we can talk about it. But I've talked to Jessica and I said, "You really ought to be doing more outreach. You ought to be building up all that." And she says, "Oh, we got a guy. He does a Zoom meeting with some of the counties." So they're not doing it. They're not putting money or energy into it. We're going to be focused on this legislative session once we get through the election. So,
It would have to
but
say
we've got the model. I know we know how to do it. You're right, sir.
after the new election and new administration, if they'll even let us or be interested. It could be worse.
Well, I mean, if it's worse, who cares? We won't do it. You know, I mean, they can.
Yeah, I think we need to focus on leadership and find some good people. So if you want to be part of that, I don't know if you can vote on SCC, but there are some rules coming out this weekend that we need to vote no, no, no. And we need transparency and treasurer's report
Yeah.
to say that they spent this and they spent it on us. They didn't spend it on us. We
So,
gave them.
Diane, to answer your question, and Shannon, I'll be right there. To answer your question, Diane, if you can get a list of who's on SCC, we have the membership. You could literally do a alphabetical check. Last time I checked 2 years ago, we had 78 members in our caucus who were SCC. So if
Okay.
you can get that and lay them next to each other, we can
Yeah.
figure out who's on SCC.
Yeah, I have the list. It's only a year old, but now they make you sign and say, "What are you going to use it for?" And if you don't use it for what you're saying for, if I say, "Hey, I'm calling people to say we need new leadership and we need transparency and we need this," if I don't tell them what I'm going to
Well,
do, they'll
Diane, what you
they'll court martial me. They really will and say I'm not. It's that bad.
Diane, Diane, what you're actually doing is you're checking to update which of our members in the caucus are on the SEC. That's what you're doing. What you do or we do with that information is separate. But what we want to do is find out who on the membership list is an SEC member.
Okay, thank
Shannon,
you.
sir,
I can't talk right now. I'll get right back with you.
Bus is coming.
all right.
I opened a can of worms. Sorry about that, but it needed to get out there. We needed to have this discussion.
And
Thank
it
you.
was a wonderful fair, Jeff. And
Yeah.
my hats off to you and Donna and Jan Bond and Mark who set it all up. And it's wonderful to get a few more people signed up for the caucus, like Alexis. And if Tanya behaved herself well, then all we need to do is put the appropriate shirt on her and she acts appropriately. That's great. I appreciate it. I had a great time down there. My big takeaway from the fair in Otero was how many Republicans came over to this veteran Democratic booth. And we were two things, veterans and Democrats, but they said, I'm not voting for Trump. I'm a Republican.
Yep.
I'm not voting for Trump. Should I not vote or should I vote for Harris? And then we would have that conversation about if you don't vote, then there's one less vote for Harris, one more likelihood that Trump's going to be elected. You can remain a Republican and vote for Harris, and you're going to get a twofer. You stay with your party, hope it recovers, comes out of the deep, dark side, and you can make sure that Trump's not elected. And we had a few conversations with people like that, and it was great. And Mark Finley
Yeah.
he's
the machine.
He's a wild man. He took our flyers and he was over at the Trump booth. He was at the law enforcement booth.
Yep.
He was giving, 10 to 15 of these flyers to like 5 or 6 other tables. I mean, we had forest rangers concerned about CA 1 and 2 for veterans, law enforcement, even the Trump folks. I mean, it was crazy. It was just spectacular. So he ran through all that and he drove back home and he was out canvassing the next morning. So Mark is spectacular and he uses that as his icebreaker. And he doesn't wear the caucus shirt. He's got his army shirt.
Yeah.
So there's no Democratic anything on him. And they were very receptive. Tammy is having audio problems. I had 2,000 of those made. I think I have 60 or 70 left. We have given them out. People love them, and we may have more made.
Maybe time to make more.
Yeah. Well, you and I need to drive and meet somewhere. I'm not confident that our mail is going to get to you by Monday or Tuesday, but we'll talk offline. Shannon, sir, over to you.
I'm ready. I'm actually a CC member in the county, so I get to actually vote on electing the SEC members. So I have a list of all the SEC members in our county. If you've got a document that suggests how they should vote next week, I can actually put that in an email to all the SEC members in Doñana County and ask them to vote against or vote in favor of whatever position you want us to take on these issues next week. So I have that list. I'm just not an SEC member, but I do vote on them to get them elected. So somebody will send me that, Diana. Just send me what you want them to do. I'll try to get a letter out to them, sponsor a letter to all of them in Doñana County to try to get them to vote the right way. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the voting starts in about 3 days, doesn't it, Diane?
Yes.
So we need to get that information.
I'll talk to the team that I'm working with and we'll get a letter to him.
Good. Okay,
Diane,
good.
would you send me the items that you need vote no on? I don't have them, but I'll talk to the county chair who lives next door, and she'll vote them. She and I are usually in agreement on stuff, and she's not at all happy with Central Committee, or with the party.
I know, and they're having a county chair meeting tonight, so Tate was going to update me, and he's going to bring it up again too about transparency.
I'm not sure she's going to be there tonight, but if you could send that,
I will.
She's working at the hospital today.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's a great idea because I don't think they're going to listen to us until we get their attention and they stop having 94% of the people vote in favor of anything they want to do, no matter what. I think the vote is how you get their attention.
Yeah.
we're all trying to improve this, but they're just not working with us unless they realize that the SEC seriously is a governing body for the DPNM. Because that SEC meeting was a joke.
And Claudia, can I send whatever letter we have for you to look at since you were at the rules meeting? And then
Of
you can,
course.
thank you.
Yeah, my 15 minutes at the rules meeting. Oh my God, there's not enough gin and tonic in the world to get me to go to another one of those. Anyway, so now let's go to CD3. Josh is pedal to the metal campaigning. He had nothing to report. Dorothy, ma'am, it's over to you.
Well, I've been out of town for a couple of weeks. The Alaska cruise was wonderful. I've been a little out of touch. The one thing on my back burner that needs some
Is she frozen or am I frozen?
Oh, I think it's Dorothy's
I
frozen.
think it's for
Yeah, I see everyone else's heads moving. Dorothy, you're
attention.
frozen. Do you want to turn off your video and just go with the audio? We didn't hear any of that. You were frozen.
Okay, to repeat.
Yeah.
One thing only is on my back burner is San Juan County. The visit to San Juan County that I was going to do didn't come off. So at some point, when we all can take a breath and some of us go up there, I'm still willing to go up there and call those ladies back that were my points of contact, but probably not before the election for sure,
Good
and
point.
probably before the session starts in that window somewhere.
Okay.
And that's really the all that I have for CD3 at the moment.
Okay, let's well, Dorothy, you were last up. Do we want look at that? I've got you down as Dorothy and Dorothy. Well, we're not going to miss Dorothy, are we? Dorothy, do you want to talk about the wrap up from the candidate endorsement process?
Oh, geez. That was a really successful effort that we did on candidate endorsement. It was a lot of fun to meet the candidates and talk with them. I think that has turned out to be one of the most effective ways for us to build relationships, particularly with new legislators. Uh, and the ones that are running, that are incumbents that are running again, we strengthen the relationship with them. So I'd like to see us keep doing that whenever we can. I know that some of us were disappointed that more of the senators didn't seek the endorsement, but that is what it is. And I don't think it's really worth us trying to recruit them. I don't want to put any more effort into trying to recruit them. Um, it's attraction rather than promotion in my book. So, um, Claudia, you've got the numbers. How many did we endorse this time?
Yeah, so we had 39 total, and that includes 14 that were fast track. The fast track were the 14 representatives we endorsed in 2022 that voted 100% of the time on all of our legislation for the both years, 2022 and 2023, or yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
And then so the rest of them were other candidate representatives and existing and candidate senators. I was looking over the stats and I see that we had better success. They're new to it. They don't know who's important, which caucus is going to support them, which group. So it was kind of fun to talk to the newbies and hopefully they'll be elected and we'll work with them. But I really
Yeah.
enjoyed the fast track being so responsive. They jumped on it.
That's a segue to my next thought on candidate endorsement. If the candidate is not elected and we did endorse them, I want to try to recruit them to CVA to do some speaking for us on some of our priority bills, do some testimony for us, because they're a good bunch of people that have a solid interest in the political process. And I think they would make very persuasive people, either on Zoom or in person, testifying. And Tammy's volunteering to do testimonies this year. Thank you, Tammy. So that's my thought on if they don't get elected. I'd like to make one more pass to those people and invite them to join the legislative team.
I agree. I think that's a great idea. Diane?
I agree with Dorothy, and I think that's a good point because I know Anjali would like to, and she will help and testify on certain bills for us too. So,
And she has special expertise that we're going to need.
right, right. Her father was just put in the hospital in India. I don't know much. We were supposed to have dinner on Monday. That got canceled. I think she's on her way to India, but hopefully she'll be back for our Zoom. I know she really wants to come, and she wanted to send it out to some other people for October 16th. Ah, so I did have a question, or a comment on something. Oh, I live so close to the airport. If any veteran flies in again, I will pick you up and take you where you need to go. I can't believe Shannon's on a bus. That's not,
Well,
I would have picked him up and taken him. So are you still waiting for that bus? Do you want me to jump in my
Well,
car and take you to where you're going?
I have to go to North Albuquerque. It would be
That's
like
okay.
2 hours.
Oh, oh, oh.
If you want, I mean, yeah, I'm happy to ride with you.
Might cost you a drink, Shannon.
No,
Oh,
I
I
don't
think
have time for that. I have to write letters and get SEC and uh no, I'll jump in
if,
my car right now. If you're waiting for a bus, that's not right. You
okay.
stay on
Well,
the phone.
I'm gonna go upstairs to the drop off because it's less traffic up there.
The drop off. Okay, I'll come
Yeah.
right now.
Thanks.
But
I
before
appreciate it. I
before
want to
the
talk
two
to you
of you
anyway.
leave, one thing before the two of you leave, it's a new business item. I was going to wait to the end, but we're almost there. Diane, before you leave, before you leave, instead of having a regular advisory committee meeting on the first Wednesday, which is going to be the 6th of November, the day after the election, what if we just opened it up and had an all hands and celebrate the election results? What do you think
Yes.
about that on the 6th of November?
sure.
Good, yeah.
All right. Shannon, that okay with you?
Yeah.
All right.
And when are we doing the workshop that week also?
Oh,
Or the
Look at it.
wait. Before we leave CVA, I have one more thing before I forget it,
Okay.
and that is shit. What is it? Um, if we wanted to recruit people to do this voting and to come to this letter writing training, let's reach out to the caucuses that have the lights on in somebody's home and see if they want to come too.
Good idea.
Share the wealth, share the training.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
And we'll
Black
report.
Caucus, the Black Caucus joined us for the guest speaker series in October.
Oh yeah,
So
Pat Gaston was on that cruise I was on. What are the odds?
slim.
Good.
That's pretty good. But Pamela is very interested. So I think she'll be happy to do that. We can ask the young vets and labor. Labor was swamped, so they
Young
couldn't
Dems.
join us. Young,
Dems.
yeah, young Dems. Good idea, Dorothy.
Okay, that's all. I think Diane ran off to get Shannon,
Yeah.
although her screen is still on.
Well, I had
Okay.
something else I was going to say, and I can't remember what it was. When Diane started talking, or Dorothy was started talking, it brought something to mind, and now I can't remember what it was. I was going to say it was important, but I'll remember and put it in an email or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I had the same problem. If I didn't say what I was going to say, I was going to forget it.
CRS.
Yeah, can't remember shit.
Yep. It
All right.
affects all of us at a certain age.
So let's uh move on to Walt. Communications, sir. Over to you.
Okay, very briefly, and before I do anything else, I want to thank Tammy for incredible support in putting together the candidates' information packets, that all that information material that we shared with them, and in addition, the promotional material for the speaker series and the other issues that we're dealing with. It's just amazing the amount of work she turns out and its quality, and we all should be deeply appreciative of that.
I second that motion.
Um, I talked about, tell you the truth, we did send a note to all the volunteers.
I'm leaving now for Shannon.
Okay.
Bye, Diane. So, Walt, what I've got you down is also talking about the CA 1 and 2 candidate issue package, which I think you've kind of talked about, Project 2025, and then the military families column in the newsletter.
Oh, yeah, and well, you've all seen the terrific short version newsletter on 2025, which just looked great. And let's see, what was the open rate on that, Claudia?
It was 60%.
Wow.
That's terrific. That really
That's
is terrific.
that's
I mean,
spectacular.
yeah, that's full of really significant information. What was the third thing? Sorry,
The other thing is,
COVID frog.
we talked about this last time. I don't remember who came up with the idea, but we said, we do a veteran spotlight every month. What if we
Oh
did a
yeah, one of our
Right,
candidates
right, right.
talked to us about their father, I
Right.
think, and a picture they had with their father. And I thought it was worth starting a military family little, just a little photo and a couple of paragraphs about our members, military family member.
and
Yeah,
I
how do
remember
we
one of those
solicit
things.
those? I guess that's kind of is sort of my question. I mean, amongst us, uh, you you guys know, and I think it'd be great if you would send to Claudia or me, and probably increasingly me, um, the photographs and information about your military family member. I think that'd be terrific. So those kind of small vignettes in the newsletter break up the density of the copy, but they also really sort of connect us on a personal level to the.
Once we publish it, one once we publish one and put a little
yeah,
invitation at the bottom of it. If you're a military family member, please contribute a
Yeah,
photo and a couple of paragraphs about your family member. I bet you'll get a flood of them.
I think you're right.
yeah.
And Claudia, who did you think was going to send one and didn't? I can't remember.
Bruce Miller, and he dug through all his paperwork, but I had about 4 people who have said that they are going to. So
Okay.
Sandy Stuhlberg will, and Walt, everything's just going to come into the caucus email. And as you start monitoring that, you can peel that stuff off. You can throw it into the newsletter, whatever monthly version you want to put it on, and the online, so that Tammy and Panayotis can get at it.
Okay.
Tammy, do the same thing. I know that Rick wants to do the same with his folks. So
Yeah.
let's start piling that stuff in. We'll get what I've asked people, send me a picture of your veteran in uniform and send me another picture of you with your veteran, your dad, your mom, whoever, and give me 3 or 4 sentences. And then we're just going to have these little blocks. We can have a whole bunch of them and we'll just put them in every month and maybe a couple of them. So
Mhm.
I think that would be a lot of fun. Shannon, go ahead, sir.
I remembered what I wanted to say after I was walking. There's about 2 or 3 people who have actually sent letters around recommending the vote on the issues on the ballot. And between the 2 or 3 people that sent them out, they cover probably 4,000 votes in Doñana County. And and all of them are recommending that they support the veterans issues that we want. So this is good. Okay, so
Good.
yeah, they said vote Democrat, and also they all support all four of the ballot items. And the other one that you guys may not be aware of is the one that actually allows us to set the pay for the elected officials. It's been limited right now, and does everybody know about that? What that is? Okay, what is that? Let's give Doñana County. We're Class A county. I have a sheriff who makes $85,000 a year, an undersheriff that makes $80,000 a year, and a major that makes 130,000, and a captain that makes 110,000, and a lieutenant that makes 90,000. So when it comes time for election, the major would like to run for the sheriff's position, but he's not going to take a $40,000 or $50,000 pay cut in order to get it. No. So what happens, and what happened this last election, is we actually had the sheriff run, who has a lot of experience as being a sheriff and being an officer, but she had to recruit somebody who was a sergeant to be her undersheriff. So now having a sergeant tell majors and captains and lieutenants how to do their damn job is not very effective. So we can't pay enough in order to recruit people to run for office at some of the levels, like the sheriff, like the clerk, like the assessor, and maybe the treasurer, who are actually making more money than the people that work for them. And that happens in every county pretty much, because the non-Class A counties, the Class H counties, have a lot worse problem with that, because they can't pay a sheriff. I think it's more than like $50,000 a year. So this needs to be passed just so we can get the qualified people to run for office, rather than having to put up with the people that are unqualified to do the job. It'd be nice if we could do the same thing for the commissioners and positions as well, but right now we can't. And we're only getting people, just like the legislators, we're getting retired people or people who are independently wealthy, who are already working full time, to take these positions that are not capable or have enough time or desire to make the changes that we need. The whole state is having that problem. That's why we need paid legislators and actually make enough so that they can support a family while they're actually doing government business. That's not on this issue this time, but it's something we need to support in legislation to get paid representatives and senators, just so we can recruit people that aren't motivated by the donations they get from the lobbyists. Okay,
I agree.
That's my defense.
That's very good. Our Bernalillo County Commissioner makes 60% of what his executive assistant makes.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
And the
well, anyway, I know.
Isn't worth that much money.
All right. So
I make less than 50% of the people at the county. I make $39,000 a year, maybe 40. That's all I make. Okay,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and if I were retired and I needed the money, there's no way I would run for this position. And we've got 3 of the county commissioners are working full time. They don't get to spend the 70, 80 hours a week that I spend doing this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm only one of 17 county commissioners that have been certified county commissioners since 2004. That's got to tell you something. Yeah. Okay. We don't have a qualified team running for county commissioner.
Yeah.
Okay. So what Walt and I are doing is spending some time just talking about kind of the strategy and turning more and more over to Walt. Walt is working with his team, which is Sue Walensky. Mark is another writer. Tammy doing graphics, Panayotis doing website, and I'm happy to pitch in. But Walt and I are going to do the November newsletter together. And then I'm going to be in Italy for 2 months, and he's got it. And I mean, I'm certainly not, in outer space, I can be reached, but we're just going to turn more and more of this over. And hopefully, Walt, one of the things that we can do because of this group of people who are volunteering to write is we could have some writers. And this core would be working with communications, but then you and Dorothy working together to share during the session so that we can get some people doing research on papers and writing up position papers and all that kind of stuff. So I'm so happy to have you on board, Walt.
I'm sorry, thank you very much, and I'm happy to be here. I hope to be a little more focused in the coming weeks. I'm sorry Dorothy's gone, but this is going to be a complicated session. I mean, we have the issues that we know right now are problematic, but I have a feeling that there is going to be a real push to do something about homelessness, which could well have a serious effect because they're going to try to criminalize it. And a lot of these people on the streets in these communities are our people. So we're going to have to. It's a long session, admittedly, but it's also going to be a difficult one, I think. And we
Dave,
do not have particularly competent executive leadership right now, as far as I'm
no, we
concerned.
don't. And we've had that issue come up every single session of the 4 that I've already worked. So we jump on board. They include wording that addresses homelessness so that veterans, so that we help them.
Yeah.
I want to wrap it up. Kenny's not here. We got our name changed by the IRS. So Bob and Kenny and I have to go to the bank because our bank is the worst on the planet. We have to have 3 people to move the and from here to here, but we're going to do it. I think we've got about $4,400 in the bank, which is great. And membership, we've got 558 members. I went through, did some calling. We had some people move out of state, so it's a little bit smaller. So we're just doing great. It continues to grow everywhere we go. People are excited about what we're doing, and these surveys are going to help energize and activate some of them. So we have a larger pool of people working together. So let me go around. I think Shannon's in the car and signing off. So he's probably good. Ivan, do you have anything else or anything you'd like to share with the team?
No, ma'am.
Thank you so much for recording this. I really appreciate it. Jeff, do you have anything, sir, for the rest of the team before we secure?
Appreciate you all. Hang in there. We're not giving up. It's going to be a rocky road.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
But we're going to succeed. Walt, do you have anything else?
Nope, I'm more good.
No alibis.
Mark, you have any pearls? Oh, which bank when we fight? Yeah, which bank? What's our bank with the caucus?
It's now called
BMO?
BMO Bank of Montreal.
BMO. It's bad. U.S. Bank was, well, U.S. Bank of the West, which we have, is also bad.
Bank of the West.
They're all bad. Bank of the West. They're all bad. Anyway, folks, it is 6:23 and we are adjourning, and we're going to have an all hands the day after the election and hopefully have a cocktail and cheer in Harris and Waltz.
Yep.
Diane says hello and
folks.
goodbye.
All right.
Ciao.
Diane says hello and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
My brief notes if you want them.